and welcome to Pale Blue Pod. This is the astronomy podcast for people who are overwhelmed by the universe but still want to be its friend. I'm your host, Dr. Moiya McTier, an astrophysicist, a folklorist, and a good friend to the universe. Today, I am recording from my office here at Pale Blue Podiversity, and I'm expecting a stellar guest who is also, I'm sure, a friend to the universe. I'm going to be joined by Dr. Erika Hamden, an astrophysics professor at the University of Arizona, director of the Arizona Space Institute, and author of the new book, Weird Universe, which we're talking about today. And she should be here any minute now. Come on in.
Hey, thank you so much for having me here at the Podiversity.
No, it's so great to have, visiting professors from our colleague universities stop by. So is there anything else you would want us to know about you before I have some get to know you questions. We could just jump right into that.
Yeah, let's do that.
Word.
Yeah.
Okay. The first one, you're the first astronomer I've had on the show in a while.
Okay.
So I'm curious to hear your answer. When you think about all the universe that there is out there, how do you feel emotionally?
Oh, wow. I feel a lot of things. I feel a huge sense of relief. Like one of the things that I tell my students is how low pressure everything is. It's like the universe doesn't care. Or as I tell my mom, the universe is vast and indifferent. And all of your problems that feel so huge on Earth are actually very tiny and insignificant. And so I feel like I like that because it just is there's no pressure on anything. One day the sun will destroy the Earth and none of this matters. And for me, that's very reassuring. Mm-hmm. And I also have a huge feeling of FOMO about it, actually. There's going to be so many things that will happen in the future and we're not going to be around for it. And I'm mad that we formed around a star that is only going to live for 10 billion years because there's going to be so many other things and our tiny, puny, insignificant lives. And I also think it's just so incredible. We're so lucky to get to experience anything at all and how beautiful and amazing our universe is. I just love it. I wish that more people had the experience of thinking about infinity and just how giant it is. I think that'd be healthy for people to kind of get over themselves.
I agree.
A little perspective.
100%. I mean, that's part of what I want to do with the pod. That was kind of my whole point for writing my book, where I pretended to be a galaxy for 2 years, which was really fun and perspective widening. So yeah, I could not agree with you more. And I am not surprised that that's your answer. I think people who get into astro and people who love it enough to share it with the world, they can't be afraid of it.
Yeah.
Awesome. We're going to swerve a little bit here. Do you feel like your astrology sign, your sun sign, fits who you are as a person?
So I actually have no idea if it fits me. I
Cool.
live in blissful ignorance about what the astrology sign says about me. So I'm a Pisces. Mm-hmm. I do like swimming. Actually, I don't like lap swimming. I like being in bodies of water, for vacation.
Very like a fish.
The only other thing is my mom has this birthday book that she got ages ago that is supposed to describe your personality based on the day that you were born. And the only thing I will say is that the birthday book description of me is very accurate. It's you are the loyalist friend and the bitterest enemy. And oh yeah, that's absolutely correct.
All right, taking note. Don't get on Erika's bad side.
Yeah, I'm still mad about stuff that happened a long time ago. I have a list of people where I'm if I could, I would take you down. They don't know me, but
No, we love someone who has arch nemesis.
Yeah.
I love someone who has arch nemesis.
And mostly they're very high up figures, people who are making massive decisions for the country that are, I'm you're the reason we're here and now you're on my shit list. Mm-hmm. But people recently with all the stuff happening in politics, people are oh, don't you wish we could go back to the time of 2010 or whatever? And I'm no, I hate all those people. Every single one of them anyway.
Yeah, your grievances go back far.
They really do. I remember everything. I'm still mad about stuff from 2000.
I love that. So I guess the fish in Pisces must not be goldfish then.
Yes. Yeah. Whatever fish can remember every single thing that has happened. That's me. But yeah, I have no clue what are Pisces people supposed to be like. I don't know.
I don't know much about it either, but I think that question served its purpose.
Yeah.
I now know a bit more about you. Do you have a favorite unit of measurement?
Oh, I really like, I like all the Planck measurements.
Yes.
I never use them, but like I love a Planck length. I'm actually obsessed with the Planck temperature, which is like the hottest temperature that we can model. And presumably there are hotter temperatures. We just like have no way to describe them.
So that's like the opposite of absolute zero?
Yes, it is. It's like absolute hot. But it's not real. It's just like, oh, the physics doesn't work above that.
But all the hot girlies out there should start saying, wow, you're like Planck hot.
Planck hot, yeah. There's no way to be hotter than Planck hot. I really like limits. I like the absolute extreme of what we can understand.
Nice. I like that. That's a good answer. I haven't heard that before. Next question. If you could, like, put a filter on your eyes to see in a different region of the electromagnetic spectrum, which one would you choose?
Oh, that's so easy. I'm all about the ultraviolet.
Okay.
So like professionally in my like research work, I do like ultraviolet detector technology development, and all my telescopes are ultraviolet. And yeah, I would absolutely do ultraviolet. It's like slightly less useful here on the surface of the Earth. Although like bees and like flying pollinating insects, they're able to see into the kind of near ultraviolet, because the like flowers will have different almost like bullseye patterns on them in the ultraviolet that you can't see in the visible, but it like just highlights the flower a little better. So sometimes I think it'd be fun to have like a bee's view of plants. But yeah, absolutely.
That'd be fun.
I'm a UV girly.
Okay, well, with your new eye filters, we'll also give you a high atmosphere balloon that you can go up in.
Just send me up to space, actually. That would be really good.
Okay, cool. We'll build you your own space station. The Podiversity has so many resources.
Yes, I can't wait for the launch.
Oh, speaking of launch, let's go. Let's go to the launch pad, but you get to choose what song you're playing when you blast off. So what are you putting on the playlist?
Oh, that's tough. So like being from New Jersey, I feel like it needs to be a Bruce Springsteen song, but I actually really like Muse has a lot of really good space oriented songs. So yeah, it might be like they have an album that's called Black Holes and Revelations that I really like.
Oh, nice.
Oh, they have a song called Starlight that I really like. Okay. So it'd probably be that. Or Supermassive Black Hole. It would also be appropriate. I like really have no...
Oh, no, they're the Twilight song people.
Oh, really?
That's Supermassive Black Hole, isn't it? Wasn't it like
yes, I have not seen
because of Twilight?
Yeah. I think they're super popular because they're really good. But yeah.
That too, Erika. Yep, for sure.
But yeah, like for me, there is no subtext. It is all like... It's all just like whatever's on the surface, that's what's happening. So like I just like songs about space that talk about space. Like and actually when I teach an intro class like that's for first year students, non-astronomy majors, like just kind of intro to astronomy. It used to be a gen ed and then we've since like changed the distribution requirements. But anyway, I hate the like silence in between when people are like filing in before the class has started. I like don't like that it's just like awkward silence and I'm standing up at the front. So I always play a song that has to do with whatever the topic is that we're learning. So I have this huge list of like space themed songs to play. And then I ask the students if they can guess the title and artist and give them extra credit if they know. Yeah. So I like have a whole catalog of space songs.
That's so
Sometimes
fun.
They're like, we don't know who this is. And I'm like, it like makes me really upset. But they're all babies.
I think that's going to happen more and more as time goes on.
I know.
Yes. The youths.
Yes.
The youths don't know, but you can put them on to the good music.
Yeah. Sometimes I'm like, you know who this is. You're just being lazy. Because like once I had a song that was like a Beyonce song and they were like, we don't know who this is. And I was like, oh, you should check her out. She's like kind of a big deal. You don't know who Beyonce is.
Good. Shame them for not knowing.
Like everyone gets -1 point.
Facts. Yes. Thank you. Bring back public shaming for not knowing who Beyonce is.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. Now I definitely know you better. The listeners know you better. And I think it's time to get this book that you wrote a little better. It is called Weird Universe: Everything We Don't Know About Space and Why It's Important. I told you this before we started talking, but I think it's the perfect like train read or beach read or like travel read in general, because the shape of the book is small enough to like fit I was wearing a hoodie. It fits in the handhouse of the hoodie perfectly, or like a little beach tote. And all of the sections like go by so quickly. It's divvied up into these little bite-sized, easily digestible pieces. So amazing. I love it. How did it come to be? What was your experience with it?
So originally, I hadn't thought that much about writing a book. Like I write stuff, but it's like proposals or like technical articles. But I have this very active social media presence where I make these, I describe them as silly little videos because I'm usually laughing in all of them. Just these like silly videos about space. They're 1 minute to 2 minutes long. The topics are extremely non-topical. Like I almost never talk about stuff that's happening in the news. There are other social media, communicators who talk about like new press releases or stuff that's happening like in the news. And I'm like, I don't care about any of that. I like just want to tell you about this weird thing that I learned about today. So for me, the topics are just things I'm like, oh, here's this weird random fact that I learned, or did you know about like absolute hot is like was based on a video that I made where I had like read something about Planck temperatures and I was like, I don't know what that is. And I looked into it and I was like, oh, this is so wacky. So the videos are very silly. They're like not related to anything. It's just like what pops into my brain and people like it. So I have like a decent following and I've been contacted occasionally by people asking like, oh, or, would you want to write a book? But a lot of them were like more like, do you want to pay us and we'll publish your book? And I'm like, I don't want to do that.
Oh, that is a thing.
Yeah,
that is a
like,
predatory thing that academics like get occasionally.
Yeah, so I got contacted though by like a real publisher, Mango Publishing, and they were like, we think you should actually write a book and we want to help you do it. And so they were super nice. They specialize in kind of neglected author groups. So one of the things that we talked about when I had initial meetings with them was like the realm of books about space for a popular audience, as I'm sure having written a book about space for a popular audience, like the authorship is very monolithic. And that a lot of it is just like older men writing and the books are, I don't know, there isn't really a big diversity in whose perspective is being published. And so,
or in the tone. Yeah. Really.
Yeah. And like Mango specializes in finding authors who are part of underrepresented groups who have an interesting story to tell. So yeah, they contacted me and I was like, okay, let's try it. So it's actually funny because I didn't tell anybody that I was writing a book for over a year. I mean, because I was like, maybe I won't like doing this and I won't actually finish the book. Like, so at first I was like, maybe I won't write it and I just will be like, this isn't for me. And then I wrote it and then I sent it to them and I was like, well, maybe they'll hate it and they will be like, we don't want to publish this. So I didn't tell anybody until we had gone through like multiple rounds of edits and then it had been copy edited. And then they were like, okay, we're sending it to the printer. And I was like, oh, I guess this is really happening.
Okay, I was wondering about that because your email came out of the blue and I figured I would have heard about it, but I guess maybe not. You should be a spy. You're so good at keeping secrets. How are you an astronomer?
I'm just not going to say anything until it's real. And then when they were printing it, I was like, oh, it is real. It's going to happen. And then they gave me a date, like a publishing date, like or when it would come out.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I gotta start talking about this. And it's funny because like I think I'm naturally a braggy type person, but I don't want to. It's like awkward for me on my social media to be like, oh, buy my book, like pre-order now, link it bio.
Then I'll say
Great. Yeah, but as I was writing it, I felt like, oh, I have so many things to talk about. There's so much cool stuff in space. But at the same time, I kept the chapters. Part of why they're like so digestible is because it's inspired by my like Instagram vibe of, I want this to be interesting to like pique your interest, but not be so long that you ever get bored with it.
Nailed it.
And also because I have no idea how long is a book supposed to be. If you're right. I mean, I read all the time, but I've never thought once about like how long should this be. So I just was like, I'm going to write until I stop being interested.
That's so real. When I got the first printed out copy of my book, I was shocked that it was as small as it was. I was like, what do you mean all those words?
Yeah. But like, actually, this is perfect. And like when I was a kid, I was always trying to get someone to take me to a bookstore to buy books, or I was always trying to like get someone to drive me to the library. And like, I never had any money because I was a child. And so like, I like that it's a paperback and it's $20.
Yeah.
And like, which for child, like 1990s Erika, like she never had $20. So probably I would try to take this out of the library if I were my child self. But I like that it's it looks accessible, it is accessible.
Yeah. Yeah. And it has a nice feel to it. The like texture of the front is very pleasing to people who have, sensory stuff. So all of the topics in the book, you were just writing until you were bored, so you were just picking things that you were interested in? Because it like goes all over the place.
So it was
not in in a great way.
I wanted to cover kind of a range of like size scales. Like when I originally wrote it, it was in a slightly different order than it is now. And so I wanted to start small and then get bigger in both like the size of the object and the distance to the object. And then after the first draft, I was like, you know what? I actually think one of my like, I don't know if it's a pet peeve exactly, but one of my concerns is with the concept of complexity and like what people think that they can understand versus what they actually can understand. And so a lot of people are told their whole lives that something is complicated, therefore they can't understand it. And I, as an educator, I'm like, no, that is because the person you're talking to is an asshole and doesn't understand it and can't explain it to you. And I actually think that any person can learn anything if they are given like the right teacher, the right information, the right support structure to like give them the time and the space and the ability to like blossom. So I reorganized it partly to put general relativity first because it's like the topic that is held up as like, oh, you have to be a super genius to understand this. And like, it's not true.
Yeah, I liked that.
So I was like, okay, if we're going to put GR first, got to talk about black holes, which is also held up as a thing that's like, oh my God, they're so complicated. And in fact, black holes are one of the simplest structures in the universe and have a lot of misconceptions about them. And so as I was kind of reordering things, like that was some of the motivation to be like, okay, can I write this so that someone reads it, they understand the basic premise. If they want to go deeper, they can. Maybe there'll be a second book if this book sells well. I don't know. But then also they can move on to something that, is totally different and will keep them interested.
Well, when you're trying to cover the entire weird universe, it's kind of impossible to do that in a single book like this.
But it's so weird.
It is very weird, yes. And I'm sure that this is the type of book where people will put sticky notes in it and there will be so many things that they like want to look up later. So like that's exactly what a good book like in science does.
Yes.
Good job. Did you get to put any of your own research into the book?
So actually I didn't. I'm like super weird about my own research, like in my social media, in the book, just in general. I like don't talk about it with people. Like actually I think that some of my social media followers like don't know that actually I do a lot of sophisticated research. I think because I feel like my research is still TBD. Like I don't have a solid answer for stuff. And so I don't talk about things where I don't feel like I can give like a good summary or like here. And I guess actually I could talk about it because, nothing in science is ever definite.
Facts.
But yeah, I don't talk about my own stuff. I barely talk about telescopes even. I talk a little bit about like some historical astronomy, like how did we figure out that stars are fueled by hydrogen fusion? And I talk a little bit about like, the Harvard computers who figured out how the mass of a star and its temperature connects to its brightness and some of the stuff like that. But more modern things I don't talk about too much. I think probably because I'm too close to it. And so for me, it's not fun. It's work. And everything in the book is fun to me. So that probably is also why.
Got it. But you do work in telescopes and like instrumentation things and build stuff? Yeah,
so I develop detector technology. I build telescopes with the detectors that I help develop. And then I like use the telescopes to observe. I'm really interested in the precursors of objects. So like I like stars and galaxies. I know you love galaxies, Moiya, but like I don't actually care about the galaxy once it's formed. I'm like, great. Good for you. But I'm like interested in like how it gets to that state. Like how does intergalactic hydrogen end up in the galaxy? How does that hydrogen eventually become a star? I'm like really interested in the stuff before, like the act of formation. And once it's become a star, I'm like, great, that's someone else's job. But I want to know like how do you go from an amorphous cloud of hydrogen into an actual object.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So my actual technical work is, I mean, it's like funny now, like someone emailed me asking if they could shadow me for like a school project. And I was like, actually, my job now is mostly management, like meetings.
You would be so bored.
I know. It was literally what I wrote, because like I have students and postdocs and I run the Space Institute. And so a lot of what I'm doing is like keeping everything running so that then people can do the actual work of, you know, detector development, building the telescope. And I still, you know, talk about it all the time, but like I'm not in the lab turning the screw or like checking the voltage, which is kind of a bummer. And I like sometimes think that if you become good enough at your job, eventually you end up managing people doing the thing that you're actually good at. And that's just like the way the world works.
Yeah, that's so true. I hope you get to, you know, get back in the, not lab, the building zone sometime. Okay, the lab. Sometimes you can tell I only ever pressed buttons on a laptop.
Yeah, it is like a choice. It's a choice that I made, like, because my thesis advisor, David, he is still in the lab, and like he had made a very conscious choice to not like really end up in more of the managerial parts. But as I get older and I see the way that decisions are made, I feel like my job is to make it so that the people below me never have to learn about that. And they just like do the stuff that they want to do. And I like tell them about it so they're not like completely oblivious, but they are shielded as much as possible from like the impacts from higher up.
That's awesome. I'm sure they don't know, but if they did, they would definitely appreciate how much you're shielding them. Yeah, that's awesome. Hey friends, Erika graciously offered to use her instrumentalist skills to fix that telescope in the observatory connected to my office, so I'm going to take a few minutes to share some messages with you. The first is a podcast recommendation, another show in the Multitude Collective, and it's called This Guy Sucked, hosted by Dr. Claire Aubin, who you heard on last week's episode about Moonraker. This Guy Sucked is a history podcast for haters by haters. Join Dr. Aubin and a new expert every week to pull back the scholarly curtain on some of the world's biggest bummers. No dead person is safe, and the show's guests prove that the best part of understanding the past is criticizing it. New episodes come out every Thursday wherever you listen to podcasts, so check it out. I also want to say thank you to all of my patrons who support the show financially every month. I really appreciate your support as an independent podcaster who doesn't get any like external sources of funding. So thank you so much. I also want to give a big shout out and thank you to my Sun-like stars, Scott Reynolds, Tom T, Nicole Bartlett, and Ashley Shambo. Happy solstice, my golden friends. I hope you are all having a lovely time. I hope you've enjoyed some time in the sun and indulged in some sweet treats. You have earned it. If you haven't already joined my Patreon, you can do that. You can hear your name on the show. You can make it to my patron star chart and get research notes for most episodes for just $5 a month at patreon.com/palebluepod. Hotter tiers like my Sun-like stars get access to Pale Blue Pod at night, where I read bedtime stories in what I hope is a calm, soothing voice. And of course, by bedtime stories, I mean my PhD dissertation, at least for now. And Blue Giant stars at an even brighter tier get to see videos of episode recordings. And if you sign up for an annual membership, you'll get a 13% discount across the entire year. That is 1 percentage point for every constellation that the sun passes through over the course of a year. So check it out, and I would appreciate your support. Erika's back and says my telescope is in tip-top shape. So let's continue this conversation about the weird universe. Okay, so you didn't get to put much of your own research, or you didn't want to put much of your own research in the book. But out of the, literature reviews and the other type of research that you did for this book, was there anything that surprised you? Like, I know it's full of weird stuff, but what was the weirdest for you?
So for me, the weirdest thing was when I was thinking about really low mass stars. So I don't deal a lot in my own work with like actual stars, even though the star is like the building block of everything. It is like you need the star to have the galaxy, you need a star to have a planet. Like the star is I don't remember if this ended up being a chapter title. I think it is. Oh yeah, stars, the universe's response to gravity. That like the star is the fundamental thing in the universe. But so when I was reading about stellar evolution and kind of the lifetimes of stars, I'm just so amazed and like sort of envious, to go back to our FOMO comment earlier, of how long the like smallest stars will live. That like the lowest. So like the definition of a star is something which is fusing hydrogen into helium. So there are smaller objects which fuse deuterium. Like they're technically not stars, they're brown dwarfs. They'll also live for a long time. But like the tiniest, technically still a star, is going to live for like 10 trillion years. And like part of why they live so long is because their rate of fusion is so low that they don't use up the fuel very quickly. But then they also are basically 100% efficient. Like they will fuse all of that hydrogen, whereas the sun is only going to fuse like less than 10% of its mass of hydrogen will actually get fused.
I'm so glad you included that point.
Yeah.
I think even when people get to the point where they know that stars fuse and that they fuse hydrogen into helium, the efficiency never gets brought into the conversation. So I'm really glad you did that.
And like those supermassive stars are like massively inefficient. Like they barely touch any of the hydrogen. And so I love the inversion of like the bigger the star, the worse it is at being a star, actually. It's like terrible stars. If the whole point of a star is just to fuse hydrogen to helium. I mean, I love massive stars for other reasons, but they're totally unassuming. They're not very bright. They are everywhere. They are the most abundant, but just by number, but they also are just going to live forever. And I am so envious of whatever creatures are living around one of those stars, because man, they are like just so reliable. Like those people on their like weird little dim planet are not going to have to worry about what happens when their sun destroys them, because they have an infinity amount of time. I'm like, man, I want that.
I love to combine my astro and folklore expertise through fictional world building, like imagining life on other worlds. And I do that often with the TRAPPIST planets, just like a fun mental exercise.
Yeah.
And I think about this, like, they have the potential to live so long. And you know, I get to make it up. So I imagine that they have a single society that does last. And if they need to hop between planets, they can. And like, you can do that around a
teeny tiny star. And like, you know, earlier I had said that I like thinking about the universe because it takes the pressure off, because like one day the sun will engulf the earth and everything that you've built, like it unless you get it off the surface of the earth, it doesn't matter. Like the only thing that matters right now is like the Voyager probes. Everything else gets destroyed. So like in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter. But if you're on a civilization around a 0.1 solar mass star, like maybe they're super stressed out because everything matters. It's going to be there forever. They like really need to make it count.
Oh, I never thought of it that way.
I hope they're not stressed.
Fingers crossed.
I don't want that for them. Yeah.
They also tend to have more planets though, right? So maybe they see that as, you know, so many options.
Yeah, they have like abundance. Yeah.
I love that. Well, this goes along with what you just said. You have this line in your book where you are talking about the death of the sun, and you say, hopefully for us, we will have taken to the stars billions of years before, finding the warmth of other suns and new worlds to live on, which is, you know, beautiful writing.
I mean, I stole that from Langston Hughes in part.
Oh, great. Well,
so there's a phrase that I love. The warmth of other suns is from a Langston Hughes poem talking about partially the African-American experience in America and like people leaving the South and trying to move to other places. And it's like technically about like a seed being planted and it will experience the warmth of other suns in a different place. And I like think about that a lot, because in space it is like actually it would literally be the warmth of other suns, but it's also about like, could you thrive somewhere that is not really where you were originally planted, but maybe will be better. And like, so that little bit anyways is inspired by that.
Oh, I love that.
And it's also a really excellent book. Yeah. There's a book that's called The Warmth of Other Suns that's about the Great Migration that I highly recommend. Yeah.
Oh, I'm so glad I asked and brought it up, that because I wouldn't have recognized that reference, but that's you know, really appropriate. Poignant, maybe?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so reading that line got me thinking about your other hopes for the future of astronomy and, our relationship to the universe, especially as an instrumentalist. So besides taking to the warmth of other suns, what else do you hope for us in the future?
So
of astronomy specifically, we don't have to go too broad.
So I think, I'm an optimist, I think, at heart, despite being a human alive and aware of what's happening in the world. I think for astronomy, I strongly believe that there are many Earths and many planets that could be hospitable to life. Whether they're going to be healthy for a human to live on, I don't know. But given in an infinite universe with an infinite number of galaxies, certainly very far away from us, there's like a perfect Earth somewhere else. Whether we'll ever be able to get there, I don't know. But so I think we'll definitely find many planets with life. I think life is ubiquitous. I'm like Jeff Goldblum's character in the original Jurassic Park, that life finds a way. I just think that it is inevitable given time. Mm-hmm. I also think that it is possible for us to understand everything. I think given enough time and resources, people will figure out what is actually the nature of space-time, what underpins it, what is really the heart of gravity. And I think if we can understand space-time, we know that space-time can be manipulated, it can be distorted, it can be dinged by things merging. And to me, that represents a really interesting possibility of how can you overcome the limits of space-time as we currently know them? Once you understand it, maybe you can figure out better ways to travel, or you can access potential energy that's there. I think as a society, we're medium energy intensive, but we're stupid about how we access the energy. And I think so for me, living in Arizona and experiencing the warmth of this sun all the time, there's a huge amount of energy from the sun that we are just letting go nowhere, just heating up my backyard. I think as we become more sophisticated in our understanding of how the universe actually works, I'm hopeful that we'll be able to kind of use that. One of the examples that I like to tell people when they ask about why should we bother with basic research, humans are curious. It is a fundamental part of being human to want to understand things around you. So basic research fulfills a very basic human need. Why do you breathe? Why do you want to eat? Because you have to. That's why. Yeah. But for people who only think in terms of money, I say, basic research is valuable because you don't know what's going to matter. Einstein developed general relativity because he wanted to explain the things that he saw in the universe, and he wanted to explain these seeming contradictions. He did not do it for any other reason. It's not he's oh, great, now I can monetize this. That's not a thing with general relativity. But actually it is, because the only reason that GPS works is because we understand general relativity. If you put up those GPS satellites, you try to figure out where you are on the surface of the Earth, you will be wrong by a huge amount. Your distances will be 3 miles off in a day, and they get worse every day because it's all about timing and measuring the time for signals to get places. And that time depends on general relativity because satellites are moving really fast. They experience time differently than we experience on the surface of the Earth. So you have to take into account general relativity.
Yeah. Great example.
So I point out things like that, and people are oh my God, my brain is mad about people that are well, if this doesn't make money, then what's the point? But Ozempic, the GLP-1 inhibitors, that research originally started because there was a type of lizard called a Gila monster that only eats 4 times a year. And people were why is that? Why doesn't it get hungry? And so it was this seemingly esoteric basic research about Gila monsters that now yields this drug, which for a lot of people with medical conditions is literally life-changing. But if you don't have that basic research, then you never get anywhere. So this is a very long answer to I feel astronomy can feel so disconnected, but I think it fulfills a basic human need. And it's also you don't know what's going to matter.
Yeah. And a hope that I have that I see in there is that more people recognize that and continue to try learning for the sake of learning.
Yeah.
And then, use whatever interesting practical stuff comes out of it.
Yeah. There's this, I guess it was a DuPont branding thing that was better living through science. And I actually very strongly believe in that. Science makes people's lives better. It just isn't always a direct path. There's I think it's from the 50s or maybe the late 40s. Vannevar Bush, who was the first director of the NSF, wrote a white paper that was called Science, the Endless Frontier. And it was all about how the U.S. government needs to support basic research. And I just finished reading this book about the link between like American science and the American foreign policy, or like the U.S. government. Ooh. There's like many links for a very long time of like the U.S. way of doing science as a way to spread like the U.S. The book was mostly about the contrast with like the Soviet Union and like the Cold War. So spreading like the U.S. version of freedom and like capitalism. But it's still like science and the U.S. government are very intimately linked. The book was called Freedom's Laboratory. So Vannevar Bush's paper, Science, the Endless Frontier, is about how the U.S. government needs to fund basic research because that's what invents everything. And that's like the engine of the economy and like the future. And I think people have forgotten how important that like engine is as a driver, that like things don't just come out of nowhere. They like are actually decades of work. And my work as a instrument person, like the detectors that I've been working on, like I started working on them in 2008.
Whoa.
And
it takes time.
I still work on them. It takes time. Like only now are they getting put into stuff. It's a really long process and you need to like just keep pushing. And, you know, all of us, even the people doing the work, like we don't know what's going to matter in the end. So you have to do everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that was a great answer. I'm going to sit for a second with that. Yeah, I agree with that all. I hope that for the future of astronomy and science and society more broadly. One of the things that basic research has given us is another very surprising finding in this book, to me anyway. I learned several things from reading this book that I had never heard about before. One of them was about this nuclear pasta, this idea of nuclear pasta in neutron stars. And I need to know, first and foremost, who called it that? Who do I have to blame and thank for this?
So neutron stars are these super dense, basically the dead cores of massive stars, that the star isn't so massive it becomes a black hole, but it still is massive enough to like end in a pretty spectacular explosion. And the core gets like smushed into basically a massive neutron. And so this is a really interesting form of matter because it's like basically the densest stuff possible that isn't a black hole. But even within the neutron star, there's like levels of density. So the core is the densest. And then as you go further out, it's less dense, just like that's how gravity works. So there's this 1983 paper that's called Structure of Matter Below Nuclear Saturation Density. And it basically talks about like at different layers within the neutron star, what is the phase of matter going to be under these very strange, extreme conditions? And so
these are like different phases of matter, like the solid, liquid, gas, plasma.
So it's just different ways for the neutrons to arrange themselves, for like the particles to arrange themselves. And it's actually a highly ordered state. So the like neutron star itself is like low entropy because it's had so much energy put into it in the like condensation. So this paper doesn't describe the pasta in general, but it talks about nuclear spaghetti and nuclear lasagna as like these ordered states for the neutrons to arrange themselves in, where they like create these sheets or these like tubes. And then later work. So this is the first, as far as I could tell when I was like digging through papers, this is the first discussion of any type of pasta shape. And then later papers talk about like nuclear gnocchi, like these like little balls. And like spiral shapes, which I guess would be like nuclear fusilli and like bucatini, and like it's so great. Like I don't know if they're Italian, like so I was trying to figure out, because like the locations are like University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, Nordita in Copenhagen, and then Lawrence Livermore. So as far as I can tell, not Italian.
Fascinating.
So they just talk about different models that are possible at these different depths based on the density and the pressure in these like just super cool objects.
Great. Is lasagna further down? I imagine if it's like pressed into sheets.
I think lasagna is further down.
Okay.
And in some of the other papers that I read that I don't have right in front of me, the like different layers are where you can have the different pasta shapes. And then once you get below a certain layer, there's actually no pasta.
It's just sauce.
It's tough down there.
It's either the sauce or the meatball down there.
It's one
something.
It's one neutron, just a meatball. But it's so funny. Like, first of all, just how weird it is, and the like wacky names that people come up with to describe these things. Yeah. But if you tell someone like, oh yeah, there's like this state of matter where it will like naturally form these little pasta shapes, like people get it. Like if you're like, oh yeah, this is like nuclear spaghetti, nuclear lasagna, like now you already have an idea of like what the structure is, and it's very useful.
Yeah, occasionally astronomers do name things well. Everyone's in a blue moon.
Although I do think I return to it over and over again, like, this is a bad name for something, that I, like, have that in footnotes. It's like, astronomers don't know how to name things. Also, every object, people are like, is this a star? Let's call this star-like, asteroid, quasar, two things that are so different in scale, in size, in everything, but they're, like, both, like, maybe this is a star.
I mean, historically...
Yeah, it's just so funny to me.
Yeah.
Is this a star?
Categories are weird.
Is this a star?
But we love putting things into different classes. What were the hardest and the like best parts of writing this book?
The hardest part was actually just like finding time to do it. I try to tell myself that I have work-life balance, but I work a lot, and then I also, when I'm not working, I don't want to be working. So like, actually, I wrote a huge chunk of it while I was on a cruise with my mom last summer, because we would like, cruise life is really relaxing, and we would wake up, you'd have breakfast, get a latte, go to the like little library, and then I would write and she would read the newspaper or like do the New York Times puzzles. And I didn't even tell her that I was writing it, because again, I wasn't sure if it was going to actually happen. So
Not even your mom.
I'm like, oh, I'm just doing work, Mom. And then I'd try to like write for like an hour, and then we'd like go on our tour for the day, and then have lunch, and then go to the pool and the spa, and then like go to dinner. It was great. I love cruise life.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. If it wasn't on water, I would sign right up. But I don't know how to swim, so I'm not taking a cruise. Wow.
And then when I got home from the cruise, the book was not done. I like didn't write the whole thing. So then I would work on it on the weekends, and it was just hard to be like, okay, now I'm going to write, because, I had to like kind of get into it. Like, it doesn't just come instantly. I'm like reading things and then writing and then reading, and like it is similar to my process for writing papers, so yeah, that was probably the hardest part, was to feel like, okay, now I'm going to spend 2 hours of my weekend working on it. I like had to force myself to email my editor and be like, hey, it's not done, or like, here's what I have. Like, I was just like, I'm not gonna not respond. I'm gonna be like, okay, this is the actual situation. So all of those, like, the parts about my life were hard. The like writing itself was pretty straightforward, because like I like writing and the topic is so interesting that like that part was fine. I think I had a lot of anxieties about it, obviously, since I didn't tell anyone about it.
Yeah.
Of being like, maybe this is the worst. And I still am worried about it. Like, what if people read it and they're like, this lady doesn't know anything. So the fact that you learned something makes me feel really good.
Yes. No, I think that's just part of writing. And I don't know how you didn't just complain to everyone in your life about it. That's what I do. Everyone in my life knows I'm writing a book. They know exactly what I'm working on, and they know all of my obstacles. But yeah, it's a difficult process, especially with all the other stuff you do. You do so much.
Yeah, I'm like always overscheduled. Yeah.
What about the best part of writing it?
So the best part was getting to like read all these random old things and like dig stuff up, and like, looking for like, oh, what's some really good weird stars, and like what are some fun planets. And like one of the planet chapter was partially inspired by this Astronomy on Tap that I went to when I was at Caltech, and the speaker was this other astrophysicist, Jessie Christensen, who's at IPAC, like, which is affiliated with Caltech. And she had this wheel of death for, she studies planets, and it was like Wheel of Fortune, and she had this wheel that you could spin, and then she would talk about whatever planet the wheel landed on, but like literally every planet was awful. And they were all like, okay, well, you could go to this planet, but you're going to die. You could go to this other planet, but you're also going to die. You could go to this third planet, but you're still going to die. And so getting to like revisit stuff like that, where I just remember that so distinctly, or like getting to read the 1983 paper about nuclear spaghetti. The actual material was so fun. And for every topic, I kind of felt like I could write a whole book just on this one thing. And so trying to figure out like, what do I want to focus on? What do I need to leave behind? That was challenging, but also fun to just think about like, what is somebody going to want to take away from this? And it was a good opportunity because I've carried around all these silly little things in my brain for so long. Like that people used to think Venus was a tropical paradise, and they only realized that it wasn't, like, not that long ago, like the 1960s. And so I have all these things that occasionally will pop into my head, and I'm like, man, we're so dumb. And then so I got to write them all down.
That must feel like another relief, right? Some pressure off your shoulders, off your brain, maybe.
Yeah. My brain just like has refilled those spaces with other silly things. So.
Oh, of course. Okay, so book number 2. You've got
Weirder Universe.
Oh, I love that. Is that seriously something you're considering, like making this a series with all the things you couldn't fit into book 1?
So sometimes I think about it, like I want to see how the book does, how people respond to it. And yeah, but like my brain is always like, what's the next thing?
Yep.
Like I'm actually terrible at celebrating or being like, okay, this is done, I feel good, which I do feel good about it, but I'm always like, okay, weirder universe, weirdest universe. Like,
yeah, I mean, the sequence almost writes itself.
It's obviously a trilogy.
Yeah, obviously. Okay, well, I look forward to talking to you about weirder and weirdest universe, over the next 5 years.
Yeah, that would be pretty great.
But for just the weird universe, what do you hope people walk away with from it?
I hope people realize that they can understand anything, and like even our weird universe is something that is knowable, and that like they, an ordinary human, can understand these topics that are always presented as like the realm of genius, but that actually almost everyone can understand it. I think everyone can understand it if they're presented it in a way that is accessible to them. So I hope that it would be great, actually, if people were like, oh, astronomy is the realm of geniuses, and I read this book about astronomy, and I understood it, therefore, I, too, am a genius. Yes. Like, I would love that for people to take that away, that, like, you guys are all smart. You're all smart out there.
Yeah, that's a great message, because it's so true. There's no reason for GR and quantum stuff and black holes to be something that people are afraid to talk about.
Yeah, like, it's weird, but it is extremely understandable. Like, people figured it out, therefore all people can figure it out.
Yes. The 2 major ideas and lessons that I'm taking away from this are that we as people can learn anything, like we can learn to understand anything, and we as individual persons can also like understand anything once it's been learned.
Yeah. Yes. And I think that in both of those cases, if people have like, they have to have the interest, like they have to want to learn it, but they also have to have the structure and support around them to learn it. Like you can't ask someone to understand quantum mechanics when they have to work 100 hours a week at 3 different jobs. But somebody that is given the time and the space, and like to quote Virginia Woolf, like a room of one's own, like you can learn anything. You can do anything.
Hell yeah. Love that. We're going to almost end there.
Okay.
But I do want you to brag about yourself. Before we leave, like tell us about other things that you're working on if you want to, and where people can find you and your work online.
So, of course, I'll never tell anyone things I'm working on. If I'm working on a new book, you're not going to know. Actually, maybe I will tell people when I start working on a new book.
Right. Now that you've gone through
it. The first book was good. Yeah. Now that I've done it, yeah. To read about my actual work, you're going to have to come to the U of A and or like look me up on the archive. But to hear about silly things in space, you can follow my social media accounts. So I'm on Instagram and TikTok mostly, and I have accounts on other social media sites that are like lightly curated, but the videos are all on Instagram and TikTok. And
what's the handle?
Oh, Erika Hamden. It's just my name.
Nice.
I also have a TV show on Arizona Public Media that's called New Frontiers, where I'm the host. I talk about like fun science things that are happening mostly at the U of A. Southern Arizona has a very strong Arizona focus. That's great. The team at AZPM, they put out just such incredible content. Like the stories are so good. It's an offshoot of this bigger show that's called Arizona Illustrated that they've been doing for decades. And it's just a really cool look into, I think, a very unusual place. Like Southern Arizona and Tucson are just so great. Like the landscape is so interesting and unique, and the people that come here and the work that we all do, it's just the best.
Cool.
So check out New Frontiers and then my social media accounts.
Awesome. You lit up when you were talking about it, so it's clearly something you love to do.
It's very fun, and I get to meet all these cool people and like see the work that they're doing. And I'm such a nerd, so I just love it.
Yes. Amazing. Well, listeners, I highly recommend getting The Weird Universe, Everything We Don't Know About Space and Why It's Important by Dr. Erika Hamden, wherever books are sold, on the interwebs and in person.
Wherever books are sold.
Excellent.
And you can like recommend that your local library buy it. You can order it from your local bookstore.
Bookshop.org is great. They support indie bookstores if you need to get it online. So yeah, highly recommend The Weird Universe. And listeners, no matter how weird you are, you're still space. Bye. Pale Blue Pod is hosted by me, Dr. Moiya McTier, aka the universe's bestie. I created the show with original co-host Corinne Caputo, a comedienne extraordinaire, and help from the Multitude Productions team. Our theme music is by Evan Johnston, and our cover art is by Shay McMullen, and our audio editing is handled by the incomparable Misha Stanton. I am Go Astro Mo everywhere online, and you can stay in touch with the show and the universe by following Pale Blue Pod on Instagram or checking out our website, palebluepod.com. We are a member of Multitude, an independent podcast collective and production studio. So if you like Pale Blue Pod, you will love the other shows that live at multitude.productions. And if you want a shout out on the show and research notes for every episode, you can join our community over at patreon.com/palebluepod for just about $1 per episode. Thank you so much for listening to Pale Blue Pod. I'll be back next week. Bye.